Eddie, thank you for being here. We've been looking forward this moment. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so
Good.
much. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So, just a few lines about Eduardo Mainero. Did I say
El
it right?
mismo. El
Yes,
mismo. Yes,
perfecto.
correct, correcto.
Eddie, as I call him, I had the pleasure to meet Eddie close to not quite 10 years ago, but just about. And
Mm,
he's one of
mm.
the most creative individual I've ever met on this planet. 20 years of graphic experience, created some wonderful, beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous looking graphic things, and continues to create not only graphically but as content creator with his YouTube baby, a channel that we
Yes.
call. How do we pronounce it properly?
Teolumen.
Teolumen. He's going to be giving us a bit about that as well. But why don't I give Eddie a few minutes to introduce himself and see where this conversation takes us. And before that, Eddie, after we talk about Eddie's beautiful work, we're going to switch to, you know what? The talker, the topic of these conversations, right? The
Yes.
talk of the second part of the presentation. So keep tuned because that's coming as well. So Eddie, why don't you tell us a little bit about your beautiful being?
Thank you. Well, yeah, I've been doing graphic design and content creation, visual communication for nearly 20 years now, you
Gee,
know?
time flies.
Oh man, especially when you're doing stuff that you love, right? It's you go into your flow state and this universe of creativity is always consistently changing, right? So different clients, different endeavors, it's usually so much variety that you don't get bored. So uh because of all this creativity, I needed an outlet to share my passions with the world without it being associated with work, and that's how Teolumen was born, out of the passion to share the experience of the mystical, but more from like a bridge between ancient mystical stuff, the spiritual, the esoteric, the
Oh.
soul language, and the science, the the more empirical, the more testable, the scientific, So
Hmm.
Teolumen ends up being like the voice between the science and the spirit, It's
I
that
like it.
juncture,
Well,
you
that's
don't
a
know.
that's an interesting blend. You're giving me a lot of information there, and then I'll be writing a few things down.
Mm-mm.
Well, let's unpack this because you said some beautiful things there. What is Teolumen? First of all, does it have a meaning? The word.
Yeah, okay. So Teolumen basically is a composite word that comes from Theo, from 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 the Greek word theos, which is
Oh,
God,
yes.
and lumen, which is light, you
Hmm.
know. So it's kind of like the light from the divine, the wisdom of the light from the divine.
And
So
and
if
and you came up with it by just working through words and kind of
yeah.
looking for that, or it just kind of hit you one day. It's like, whoa, that's my. It's kind of.
No, no, no. I wanted that. I wanted a name that I could use that didn't sound too mystical or too spiritual, but it would also convey um, divinity.
Divinity.
So I think the word Theo has a good ring to it,
Yes.
and light. Light is such a beautiful concept, and
Hmm.
how light is. If you fracture it, it has all these colors,
Hmm.
but there's only one light, and it's
Hmm.
white, pure white light. So it
I like.
also connects with that concept of unity.
So it's safe to say that Teolumen and the topics you cover, they're pretty rich. They can be deep. They are not some surfaced kind of topics. You like to go in kind of depth at the important topics or the ones that
Yeah.
like. Am I making sense? Like,
No, no, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. We like to go deep down rabbit holes of consciousness and like controversial topics like telepathy, or maybe one day we'll be exploring like near-death experiences, or maybe we'll be calling out the quantum entanglement on quantum physics. So, or maybe now we're
Oh.
going on black holes and space, So frequency healing and solfeggio frequencies.
Oh,
So yeah,
have you always been interested in the? I mean, I've known you for the better part of a decade, but have you always been curious about? Because these are things that have notoriously been hard to measure, or many people would
yeah,
shy away from, right? But
yeah,
you are not. You're the opposite. I'm running towards that.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, it was always like in the back of my mind because I grew up with a father that was always interested in meditation and like self-development, and he would listen to Deepak Chopra while we were like on the highway to visit our family, or like he would read Osho, Rajneeshi.
Whoa.
So all that kind of like mystical knowledge was always in the background of my awareness, but it didn't really trigger my curiosity until I went through a juncture point of my life that took me to hit rock bottom. And in that rebuilding, I reached out to what my heart called me for my spirit called me for reconstruction.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's when my quest and my awakenings began, and I just had this insatiable thirst for knowledge and
Okay.
for the
Oh.
esoteric, the occult,
Hmm.
and that's when I just dove deep, man.
I like it. Okay. I'd like to unpack that further. You said I reached the rock bottom, and I think a lot of people that I've interviewed or met, they have similar experiences. Like when they describe it like that, I reached rock bottom. What does that mean? How do you know when you've reached the rock bottom? What does it tell you? Okay, that's it. There's only but up from here.
Okay. Well, I guess for me, the rock bottom was um, my whole paradigm got shattered. I had all these preconceived notions of what life should look like, what relationship should look like. I had like a cookie cutter mold pretty well set for me. And for me, the catalyst was the rupture of a long-term relationship. It was a marriage that
Okay.
fell apart, and like I went down into the spiral of depression and sadness and wallowing into my own darkness. And that's when I hit my rock bottom. My rock bottom was a point of like um, absolute misery, where I decided that I needed to do something to get out of this bubble of darkness and to emerge anew and to get
Wow.
rid of all the preconceived ideas, the obsolete programs that were no longer self-serving, that were no longer uplifting, and that were just inherited from a reality that just wasn't in alignment with me
Wow.
anymore.
You know what I really respect about you, Eddie, is that I rarely meet, and I do, but I rarely meet people that so calmly speak about misery and depression. Like there's stigma around it often,
Mm,
right? Especially with men to express how we either feel or have felt. But I really
yeah,
appreciate how you're like, well, this is how I felt.
it
How is
was
it that
my
you speak
catalyst,
like
man.
that? Like you speak so calmly and freely about it.
Well, I guess I learned to love the process, you know.
Mm,
I wouldn't be who I am today if I hadn't gone through those dark integration moments of my shadow and of my past. So I'm very grateful
good for you.
to that chapter of my life. So I can speak from a place of love for that because it made me who I am today.
Mhm. Oh, you're a beautiful being, and I'm sure that
Mm.
the listeners and viewers can already sense that. So now we've got this moment of where you kind of shifted, and then this beautiful that we're talking about, Teolumen, has been born from it and then out of it, let's say. So, what is its purpose? Now you've got your shift internally. Are you trying to convey that shift on a broader scale, or help people make that shift, or that's not necessarily what Teolumen does?
No, well, see, like um, Teolumen is basically um, an expression of passionate curiosity that has come from this journey of awakening and integrating the lessons from that process into a modern version of who I am today. So it becomes like a creative outlet of curiosity for all things consciousness and science and spirit and that juncture between both. And uh, and basically it's a sharing of this passionate curiosity, but also um, in community. So it's like
Mm,
collaborating with people and like communicating with the audience, and finding those topics that are like deep to our mind and to our questions, and that maybe like penetrate our dreams, and we're like, oh, I wonder like if we can like develop telepathy as humans, or I wonder like if like there's life beyond death, or like what's happening with near death experiences. So I find that there's a whole realm of this kind of exploration of consciousness and of
yes.
these topics that is now rising,
Hmm.
as the frequency of humanity increases. We have curiosity to find out beyond
More. Hmm.
the regular stuff, right?
Is frequency of humanity increasing?
I think there's communities of humans that are raising their frequency,
Okay.
and by osmosis, or by just resonance, by
Hmm.
morphic resonance, um, there's influence.
There's
There's
influence.
influence.
Yes.
There's an upward influence. The same way you have like the toxic person that only talks about gossip and whatnot, and it like feels like draining and like
Hmm.
pulls you
Hmm.
down.
Hmm.
There's also the uplifting guys, the ones that work on themselves and they're always joyful, and they
Of
enter a room
course.
and the whole room brightens up. You want to be close to them. It's infectious, it's
Yes.
uplifting.
Of
So
course. Yes.
I think you can recognize it.
Yes, you can. And I'll describe you as a human being like that. And there's a good example. I read it many, many years ago, and I can't remember where, but they were giving an example with light and darkness. If you were to bring, I don't know, like a cup of darkness in a room that is lit up, it won't really have much effect, maybe some influence. But if you
Mhm.
bring a candle in a dark room, it has a massive effect. So it's a simple example, I know, but yes, it does, as humans, a specific kind of layers of humans, if you wish, are raising consciousness or raising
Mm,
frequency,
mm,
it will by default be contagious for and 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 affect others. If I'm a new person to Teolumen, so I come across your beautiful channel, which by the way is doing really well, so people out to check it out. We'll put the links on
mm,
the in the
mm.
description. But what do I expect to learn, or is it? Am I gonna be entertained? Am I gonna learn something, or it's only, or is it gonna be like voodoo stuff and like is? Am I gonna learn something, and what is it that I can expect? If I make sense.
Yeah. Well, see, I think you have two avenues in
Hmm.
Teolumen. You can go for the long form content, or you can go for the short form content. If you're one of those persons that likes the quick stuff, and that
Hmm.
your attention span is maybe like a little bit like influenced by the algorithms of nowadays, and you want something just quick and easy
Hmm.
to absorb, then you'll go down the rabbit hole of our shorts.
Hmm.
And there you will find really interesting nuggets of thought-provoking, food for thought, kind of like information,
Hmm.
and that will leave you with
Wanting more.
value, and with wanting more,
Hmm.
and with stuff to ponder after your session. If you want something a little bit more like, okay, I want to like really learn some new stuff, then you go into the long form stuff, and you'll probably not need, but you will probably go into more of a scientific exploration of topics that are a little bit more controversial.
Hmm.
I would suggest you start with our episode titled "Reality is an Onion," and
Oh,
that way it's like you will go into the multiple layers of how we have interpreted this thing that we are experiencing, and how it's a multi-layered experience, and we go from the simple to the really complex.
is
So
it?
it's
Is
a
it?
it's a fun ride.
I like that. So obviously, onion signifies, like you said, it's layers. We're gonna be layering here and seeing.
Hmm.
Okay. Uh, do you think? is it guaranteed that a single human will layer it all in life? Is it like, how do we, what makes one person discover and keep like removing layers, and another person staying on one layer and not really?
I think there are like the our attachments, you know, consciousness as it streams through the human experience. Um, it interfaces with what we call the ego, right? And the ego is basically like the chat GPT of our experience. It's like the large language model algorithm of
I like it.
story.
I like it.
Yeah, it's
That's
like the ego is the large language model of our experience. It's trained on our culture, it's trained on our past trauma, and it's constantly like repeating stuff back
yes,
to us.
yes, yes. Well, we're gonna talk about it later, but I can think of a few differences. One is what most people I talk to, including myself, report about the ego, or the talk as I call it, is not often not nice, can be very critical. But ChatGPT so far is being very kind to me.
Yes, yes.
That's one major difference I can think of right away.
Yeah, well, but if we take it back to the onion, it's like the ego layers our
Hmm.
experience in all these contexts, in all these stories, in all these narratives. And all these layers are basically interpretations that we have of this life, of this reality, of
Hmm.
these relationships
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
whatnot. So I think, yeah, that's
But
how we get the multi-layered experience
I like that,
through attachment, identification.
for sure. So if like Teolumen, like I'm watching this video, right? And I get, wow, this is cool stuff, exciting. And I stay. What is the next most impactful video that you've done that I should watch? And why? Like, why am I watching it?
I would suggest you go into biophotons.
Oh,
Biophotons is a really nice step from the reality onion because it's really mysterious how there's this whole realm of science that explores the communication that the body has within itself and with each other
it's beautiful.
through light. And it's light that is so faint that you cannot perceive it with your eyes, but cells can perceive this light communication with each
Outside,
other.
so we're talking about bodies to bodies, not only within the body. Now we're talking bodies to bodies,
Bodies to bodies or or body within itself.
and they
So
communicate.
they communicate through light, and it's really, really faint light, but it's enough light communication to transfer information. And so through this biophoton research, you can easily go the route of science and go like, oh, okay, let's explore this through this like analytical lens. And but we also have the okay, what's light within the body? It's the chakras, it's the subtle energy field, you know, that you're like a Bluetooth speaker, like streaming information. You cannot see this biofield, but there's information that is like resonating in your biofield. There's noise, there's like good vibes, there's bad vibes, maybe like they're connected to your different energy emotional centers.
Okay.
So
Well,
that's where I would take you.
as you're speaking, I'm already hooked. I'm gonna watch this video, and I don't want to ruin it for other people. They should watch it too. It sounds really cool. But I want, as you're speaking, does that mean that when I go, let's say, in a line in the bank, and or I meet somebody and I get a bad vibe, I feel that way? Does it have
Mm.
anything to do with? And I don't know the person. It's the first time I met him. Does it mean that the bodies communicate through that light channel that you're talking, and maybe I feel something, but I don't know what it is? Is that the same thing when you have this, oh, that person, oh, wow, that person, without a
Yes,
word being said?
yes, yes. I think that's the overlap of the biofields. The same way you can have like a guitar and like you're walking, maybe you're walking down the street playing the guitar and someone's walking by playing the flute, and there's a point where the two sounds combine, and it can sound harmoniously if they're in the
Whoa.
same note, or they can sound like
Uh,
dissonant.
okay, but I mean, if I'm saying something bad to someone, or like using my language, or they're saying something, we can correct that. I can say, "Gee, I should probably be nicer," right? Or that other person can say that. But how do we change that energy? Where, like, if I feel a bad vibe, or I'm emitting a bad vibe, do we have a way to change that? Is that in our control?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think so. I think so. Like it's the same way. Like if you're looking in the mirror and there's like a frowny face, you don't approach the mirror and you try to like fix the mirror, the face in the mirror, right? You have to change
You'd
yourself.
hope not.
You have to
Yeah,
smile so that the reflection can smile, right? So it's the same
absolutely.
principle. So you change the frequency within yourself so that what you project outwards is like different. And by manifestation, then the universe will reflect back what you're putting out.
I love it. I love
So
it.
there's this whole communication dynamic.
There's too many questions pop in my mind, but I think one that listeners, because I meant to ask this a little bit ago, you mentioned consciousness, consciousness, consciousness a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
it's I mean, and rightly so. How would you describe consciousness to a 10-year-old?
Okay. I think consciousness to a 10-year-old, consciousness is like the music in a radio station. You
Okay,
know,
I like
you
that.
you
Okay,
have a radio station and you can tune in your radio, and then you're like, welcome to 92 FM. Okay, now you're tuned into a frequency. The frequency is streaming. That's a consciousness stream. You know, uh, if you tune to another station, the station doesn't disappear. It's still there streaming music and streaming its programming. Uh, so you as a person, you are a receiver of consciousness.
okay,
Consciousness is not inside your head. It's
okay,
not inside your brain. Your brain tunes into frequency of consciousness, and
okay,
then so consciousness is you tune into consciousness, not consciousness emanates from you.
okay. That's interesting.
So if
So,
you're a 10-year-old, it's like consciousness is the radio station of the universe.
but is there more radio stations? Because you said you can. Is it you untune and tune to one station,
I think there's one consciousness that is like all the stations. And then there's like different frequencies, which are different stations. The
and then
same way you have different musical notes in an instrument is one instrument, but many notes,
okay, okay, okay.
you know?
So,
So
but so
the sound is just one.
is there anything outside of consciousness? Maybe I should ask that. Is there
It's,
anything outside of consciousness?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I
so
think
we are
everything
all
is
so
consciousness.
everything is in consciousness, and it's all a total vibration that you kind of like gave an example as being a radio station,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can
yeah.
tune in properly or not.
Yes.
And what happens when we don't tune in properly?
Well, like just imagine what happens when your like instrument is not properly tuned to a nice note. There's noise.
There's noise.
There, it doesn't sound neat. It doesn't sound clear. There's no clarity. There's noise. There's inconsistencies. So if your consciousness is dirty, so to speak, if it's not cleanly, neatly calibrated, then there's gonna be dissonance. There's gonna be blockages. There's
Hmm.
gonna be um, yeah, then like energy doesn't flow neatly and smoothly.
And
So
all sorts
maybe
and all sorts
within
of
yourself,
problems and all
yeah,
sorts of problems to the rise, right?
yeah, exactly. So within your experience, energy not flowing may manifest as discomfort, ailment, headache, anger, um, at least in the physical manifestation, right? Maybe in the non so physical manifestation is that you have projects that just don't quite come to fruition,
Hmm.
or like energy is stuck. You're not getting um, financial, um, like maybe you're having a hard time paying your rent, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
and things are not flowing.
Things are not flowing. So, and it can be expressed in multiple ways in your life, like you said, from health, financial, relationships. Probably, I
Exactly.
think it's commonly about like all of it combined when you're stuck, right? But what, like, I mean, nobody taught me to tune into the radio station when I was 10, and even earlier or later. Like, it's not something that you if they missed it, if they taught it, I missed it in school. It's not in school, at
No,
least that I know, right? So is it because it's something that's hard to measure? Is it because there's no agreement between scientists on what consciousness actually is, and how, as you said, we tune into it? Why are we not paying attention if it's that important?
I think it's because we are mostly operating from a reactive point of view. You know, we we are culturally programmed to respond, to react. So we are, it's like we are inside, we're like in a river, in like a lifesaver, and we're just floating with the current. So we're just responding to what happens instead of like swimming,
Hmm.
right? So they tell you, oh, life happens, instead of like, no, you create the circumstances that life can happen for you.
Hmm.
Instead
Oh,
you
beautiful.
swim instead of letting yourself be carried by the current. So my parents, like, at least from my dad's side, I got a little bit of that input, like, yo, like, you create your own reality. Not reality is just happening, and it's like you're just floating in the stream. And from my mom's point of view, which was a little bit more like religious, it's like God created us and you live and
Hmm.
just be good.
Well, that was the reality of many people, still is, right?
Yeah. Exactly. So it's not mainstream that to be empowered to create your own reality.
Yeah,
So
but
I think naturally, if you haven't learned that lesson, then you're just on responsive mode, you're on
mm,
reaction mode.
I hear. Well, I mean, it's it. Okay, when we say, I mean, we've seen people creating beautiful life, so it's got to be true that you can create this an amazing life on this planet, and it doesn't have to be just the financial part. We're talking about a human being that is content, that is shining, that is
Hmm.
enjoyable to be around, that definitely is enjoying life fully, and it's a
Hmm.
beautiful thing. And yet, on the other page, we have a country that's been just devastated by internal or external wars, let's say. Does that mean that collectively we can attract, like as a collective, country consciousness, or country mindset or whatever, that can collect reality, um, attract that reality of a war?
Um, I think depends on like critical mass. You
Hmm.
know, obviously you have like powerful influences of a few impacting a, a lot,
Hmm.
right? And usually that's how you see wealth distribution and like power distribution. Only a few people control the agenda of the many, the
Hmm.
government power or the elites of like the service provision of like energy and like
Hmm.
gas and
Hmm.
like politics. Uh, I think that as a community of people start to develop and improve their awareness, their quality of life, their quality of relationships, naturally everything starts like growing and,
Hmm.
and improving around themselves.
Hmm.
And in order for you to see it in the size of like a whole country, you would need a lot of more momentum
Hmm.
to get to a whole country peace state or a whole country health and wellness state. So if
Okay,
you
I
go
see.
into a smaller scale, let's say like a community of 100 people, and when you have a community of 100 people that uh, stop being in survival mode, and then they start developing collaboration and health and wellness for each other, and community and healthy relationships and healthy emotions, then these 100 people will naturally all start feeling better, and
Yeah,
all will start wanting better for each other. And eventually that community will grow into being a very nice, wholesome community,
hmm,
a
I love it.
unified, wholesome community. Um, so
I love it.
maybe that one is just 100 people, but exponentially, as we continue to develop, I think eventually we'll have communities that will start to rise into these more holistic, wholesome communities that
I
are
love it.
distancing themselves from like control and like power and like self image, just like self benefit, in
Hmm,
service to self.
hmm,
Once you realize self service to self is selfish, service to self only nurtures or nourishes my own ego,
hmm.
and it doesn't benefit the other. And once you realize, okay, there's like an illusionary veil between the other and me, when you realize I am the other too, then it's like I will naturally want them to be better, because if they are better, I am
I am
better.
better. Wow. Okay.
So naturally,
That's
that's how you start to like get wholesome in a collective level.
That's a really powerful answer. And what I got out of it, and it's the truth, we need that critical mass. And to the point where, like you said, that realization of realizing that you and I, there's a very thin layer that the egos kind of put
Hmm.
between me and you, that there isn't really a layer, it's one and the same, then it's very easy to do good to you or to think good for you, because there's no difference, right? I'm doing it for myself. And I've had moments in my life that have experienced this, and I can say to listeners, it's the most beautiful and natural experience when you're coming from the point of view to give, to provide, to share, to care, as if it was one, because it is one. It's a really, really nice feeling.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eddie. Before we switch to talk about mindfulness, to talk about the talker, which is the kind of the main central topic here, is there anything else that any future viewers of Teolumen should know about your beautiful work?
Just that we really take into consideration all the input from the community. So, while my passionate curiosity for all things consciousness and the esoteric and the mystical and the space are part of the programming, we always take into consideration any input from the community. So whatever weird suggestion or interesting suggestion you have, we'll take it into the mix and we'll create really exciting, fun content
Beautiful,
around.
beautiful. So do connect with Eddie. Like I said, both on YouTube and Spotify. Will put the information that you can directly connect or follow, because he's very, very interactive, and he'll take the input, like he said. Thanks, Eddie. Now I want to
Got
switch to the other topic. We can not say that we cannot intertwine and go back to Teolumen, because it probably will, but that let's talk about that noise in the head. Like in Mind Triumph, we call it the talker. It's that voice that it's almost nonstop and often criticize judges, and often you don't even know that it's taken a hold of you. You can be kind of a dreaming state and
mm.
kind of experiencing that talker as yourself. And I'm going to open with one standard question that I have here is, when I say the talker in you or a talker in your head, what comes to your mind, Eddie?
For me, it's like this internal storyteller.
Okay. Okay. Can you
It's
tell us more? Yeah, that's it.
yeah.
That's it. That's the one.
Yeah, so the internal storyteller is this voice in my head that like criticizes me, or that like sweetens my ear, or tells me like, oh, you're going to be the savior, or oh, you're special because of this, or oh, look at that fat lady, or look at that skinny guy, or whatever. It's like this critical, sometimes like overglossing, sometimes it can be it can appear as a good
Hmm.
kind storyteller, but sometimes it's like uh, just nasty, plain nasty, and it's like, what are you talking about, like who are you,
Yeah.
and why are you telling me this stuff? Like, I don't recognize you, like you're not me. For the most part, as I grew up, I realized that it's not me. It's definitely not me.
Okay. So
There's
when okay, that's good.
there's a
That
storyteller that's in there, and it's serving some purpose for survival as a mammal or something, but it's definitely not me.
okay. Many people go through life never grasping that. You did. Well, how old were you, and why would you realize it? I mean, I'm super impressed. But how?
It was just making me feel shitty, man. And I'm like, these are not my thoughts, like where are they coming from? So I'm like, they must be some form of programming or some form of like cultural regurgitation in my mind. So I don't know, like, because I was taught this experience of like being able to swim in the currents of life. Then when I would stay passive and I was starting to learn meditation, I I would have this like storyteller in my head, and I would like realize that it was telling me stuff that wasn't really beneficial to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it made me question, like, why would I tell myself something so nasty if I love myself, you
Wow.
know?
Okay.
So I'm like, if I want the best for myself, if I love myself, why would I make myself feel shitty? What's
Okay.
the benefit of it? So I'm like, there's something here that's like giving me all this nasty stuff just so that I believe it. And so that and if I believe what it's telling me, then it's gonna continue to tell me all these stories, and by that interaction, it's going to stay alive
And stronger and
and
louder.
stronger. Yeah. So
Okay.
learning to meditate was how I learned that that
Wow.
thing was not me.
Wow. Okay, I need to pause here because you asked the question, like, what is this thing? Why is it telling me this thing? Why should I listen to it? It's obviously against me and it's telling me all these things. So for the listeners, that's the question. Why, like, and Eddie said, like, I don't want to listen to it. I love myself. It's telling me not to love myself in different ways, right? It's the language that it has, and it's not giving me any benefit. And yet, for since Buddha and before, that's been the message, Eddie,
Hmm.
and we keep listening. The majority of people would still and maybe not even realize that this is not them. Why? When it's something telling you the opposite of what you should normally hear about yourself, why are we still holding on to it?
Um,
Big question.
yeah, I think it's because we identify with it. We still think that that part of it is us. Well, then we're going down the rabbit hole of like identity. It's like, oh, if I am not my thoughts, and if I am not my body, and if I am not my memories, and if I am not the storyteller in my head, then who the heck am I?
That's a good
you know?
question, isn't it?
And it's a fearful question, for some, because you're like, okay, what are you telling me that I am not Eduardo? I am not Alex. Then who am I? And that's a tough question to ask
Mhm.
because we identify with this character in the play of life so boldly and so strongly that it's a really fearful thing to ponder that we aren't this, and that this means nothing, and that we can let it go and still be without it.
Okay,
So
so
you're like, oh my goodness.
so what you're saying is to the listeners, and I 100% confirm, is that if you let go of this voice, the talker that we've been listening to for so long, said, I will still be here.
Absolutely. I think beyond the talker, there is pure you-ness. You are beyond the talker. And it's like, okay, well then what am I? What am I, Eduardo? If I am not the storyteller, if I'm not my memories, if I'm not my name, if I'm not my childhood, if I'm not my job or the role in my job, then who am I? I think the question here is like remove all those layers and feel what's left.
Yes.
That's what you
Yeah.
are.
Well, see, the ego or the talker cannot answer this question. It cannot understand it. It cannot be answered in words. And this
No,
is this is why the fear, like you said, it's a scary question to ask, because the ego cannot grasp being. It can only label things, right? And then
yes,
try to understand things by separation, segregation, breaking down,
categorization, yes.
categorization, which you never find yourself in. I think humanity, we're at the point where we should realize that, like you said. And I asked this question that if I drop the talk, I still be here. Ironically, obviously, because that should be the simplest thing for us to understand. Well, of course, if the voice goes, you still here. It's a you beingness is nothing to do with that talker, and yet somehow with this identification, like you said, we've taken that talker as ourselves. And as you said, you were afraid to let it go because maybe if I let it go, I go. Like, would I go if I let it go? Would I die?
I think we are so scared of like total annihilation because we think that there's such a thing as complete extinguishing of beingness.
Hmm.
But I think by definition, because you exist, you can't not exist.
Non-exist. Yes,
You
exactly.
can't. There's
Yes,
no way. You're by definition, non-existence doesn't exist.
yes, exactly.
So
Oh,
so there's no way to be completely annihilated of existence. You know, there's simply no way. You may change form, suit, uh, vehicle, vessel, whatever you want to call it. But I think the faculty of witnessing, the faculty of presence is permanent in
absolutely.
one shape or form or another.
I love how deep this conversation went, and I totally love what you said, because life has no opposite. The ego or the talker has taught us that death is the opposite of life, but sentence doesn't make sense. Life means being, and being by itself cannot be unbeing.
Exactly. That's my point.
You cannot even think about unbeing. You cannot think of what that is, right? Because it's unreal. But the talker has convinced. I mean, this is another a long conversation. But I wanted to, because you said something very interesting. All the things that the talker was telling me weren't true. They were negative towards me, and I, it was a natural decision to let it go, or reduce paying attention to it. Now, I want to give another example. If you have a friend, Eduardo, that is being negative at you, calls you up and it says you suck, you this, you that, are you gonna be excited to hear from that friend, or is he gonna be your friend for too long?
You know, I would feel if I have a a bonded relationship with this person, and this person calls me to spout out all this nasty stuff at me, would feel lots of compassion and empathy for this person because uh, we are what we put out, you know? So if this person is putting out all these intensity and all this darkness, then he must be in a dark place himself.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I
Is
would I wouldn't take it personally because I know that his stream of information is only his own expression of himself. So, or himself. And
hmm
so I will go into, okay, you're clearly troubled. How can I help you feel less troubled, less angry, less intense, less toxic, you know? Maybe your storyteller is telling you some nasty stuff and you're believing it. So I will try and help him come to a grounded space so that he can reintegrate and feel into that intense emotion that he's feeling. And once that moment has passed, then I will communicate with him from a non space.
place? Okay. You said non-engage, not take it personal.
Yes.
Can we deal with the talker that way? Because this example I just gave with a friend, you gave a beautiful answer. Most people wouldn't deal that way, I don't think. But you gave a very proper example and answer. Is that a good solution for the talker? Like, don't take it personal. Don't engage in that negativity because you are what you put out.
Yeah.
Or would it wouldn't work and we drop that pretending friend, the talker, altogether? How do we approach it?
Well, like I wouldn't just shut it down and put it in a box, because I think what you resist persists.
Yeah.
Plus, also, if you like, let's say you're still in like high school or like junior high school, and you have your locker, and your mom made you a sandwich, but you don't like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, so you're like, oh, I don't like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, so I'm just gonna keep it in my locker and close the locker, and I'm just gonna forget about it for months. What happens when you open that locker after months of your sandwich being there? It's gonna be nasty, man. And it's gonna have grown all sorts of bacteria and stuff
Ooh, good
because you're
example.
like punished it, you're like, yeah. So I think if you did that to a friend, or if you did that to like, or a friend, or like the talker in this case, it's just gonna come back with all these extra
Powerful,
grown nasties.
powerful,
So I'm like, okay,
powerful.
deal with the sandwich on the spot. Maybe I don't want the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Thank you, mom, for the sandwich. I appreciate it, but I don't like peanut butter and jelly
Yeah.
sandwiches. Please give it to my brother. Okay, done.
This is the most one of the most beautiful analogies. But here's the danger, though, and maybe you can give a few hints to the listeners. If I start dealing with the ego, there is the very real danger of further identification and further falling into strengthening the ego. So the talker. So there is that. How do you deal with it? Like you said, not letting it rot, because you can't just shove, put it in the drawer, close the door, try to put the demons in there because they are not dealt with. You're right. But how do you
Yeah,
do that from a place without further staying with it in the spirals?
I would just thank it. Thank you for letting me know how you feel. Goodbye. You're fired. I appreciate your information, but it's like not of any use to me. So thank you. Goodbye.
And did it happen for you from the first time, or is it a work? That should people expect? Well, Eddie got it, and I've heard a few other enlightened beings, self-proclaimed. I mean, maybe they are, maybe they're not, but they
No,
said,
no, 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 no. I think it's a work in progress, like to disidentify from the ego or the talker. I think there's there's different paths. For me, personally, it was a path of many lanes. I found this identification from the ego through psychedelics. I found this identification from the ego through meditation, through presence in nature, um, through flow state, where I would be making art and I would just not have any presence from the ego. I would just be completely immersed into my creative output. So I think
"Wow,
there's many paths that help you disidentify from this character. Um, and in my personal path, these have been many of the
beautiful,
of the
beautiful,
roads.
Eddie." So I think what people to take note is that there are multiple ways to get to that place, and it's a process, like Eddie says. What does it once you get there, though? Whatever lane you take and however long it takes you, how does it feel when either the presence is not there or when it's less? How do you experience it?
It's peaceful. It's calm. It's like there's no anxiety. There's calmness. There's um, gratitude for what you're witnessing most of the time. You feel blessed for what is. There's uh, there's no nagging feeling in your head. There's no anxiety for the past or the future. You're able to sit comfortably in the nowness of this
Wow,
experience.
beautiful. You're
Yeah,
you're being alive. You're alive. You're with one with
You
life.
you're zesty and like jolly and
Hmm.
one with what is.
For the people who are listening to you right now and say, "Wow, yeah, Eddie has got an easy life, and maybe it did happen for him, but he doesn't have all the problems I have. I have that problem. I have, family, work, health issues, and all the things that are happening to me. How can I shut it off? And how can I be present when I have all these issues I got to deal with? What would you say to them? Is it possible for everybody to be present?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I still have catalysts in my life that trigger me, relationships are really powerful integrators of light, of light and shadow. So, um, relationships allow you to see your blind spots. You know, maybe I have like a mole in the back of my neck that's starting to
Oh,
grow funky, and I can't
I can
see
see
it.
it.
There's no way I'm not going to rip my eyeball off so that I can see what
Please
behind me
don't. Yeah.
looks like. You know, so we need relationships so that we can see what we cannot see. I mean, not completely directly, but so. With relationships, I get triggered and I'll recognize patterns that are not very well aligned, and I get triggered, and maybe I'll have like the talker come and be like, you see, you still have that shit happening, and like you still haven't worked on that, and like, okay, okay. So while it can still emerge, I can also recognize the the state that how holistic and wholesome the state of it um not being present is and feels like.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, okay, yes, I still have issues and troubles and problems, but I aspire to return to this center, calm, to this wholesome space that I try to inhabit in presence as most as I can, because it's just why wouldn't you want to be in this space, right? So when it comes,
Wow.
I recognize what it's coming to tell me, and I can work into integrating the lesson or the nugget of information that it's delivering. Thank you for this shadow that I haven't integrated. I work on integrating it so that I can return to my center.
Wow. Okay. So I'm kind of summarizing and let me know if I missed it. So for people who are feeling like there's a lot, so much happening, and how can I be present, let go of the noise and the talker? What I heard you say is that you work through it. No, you
Yeah,
don't try to remove all these things because that's less presence again, right? You can't fight it like that. You
yeah,
also
no,
said that even though you have worked to early in your life to let go of the talker, it still comes through
yes,
relationships or other things that provoke it in your life. So it doesn't
yeah,
being present and living from presence doesn't mean that everything's going to be perfect and pink glasses everywhere and the talker will never show up again. I think it's part of
no,
human experience, like the experience we have, but it's choosing not to identify with it, like you said, learn the lessons that it's giving you and no thank you again. Did I
yeah.
hear you right, basically?
Yeah, I think it's like a feedback mechanism.
Hmm.
It's a feedback loop that comes to deliver information that uh, cannot be taken literally. The storyteller will give it a specific narrative, the talker will give it a specific narrative, and it may feel toxic and nasty
Hmm.
because of how it's delivered. But it's like if you don't identify with the delivery, with the way the story is coming, and you just dismember it as like a crazy scientist, and you go like, okay, let's see
Oh.
what's happening here.
Hmm.
You're like, oh, what I see here is that there is anxiety because um, you still haven't integrated the pattern of, for to say something at random, of waking up early to do exercise. Ah, okay, okay. So what do? I improve on my pattern of waking up early and doing my exercise. So the trigger and the narrative may be nasty, but the information is really valuable. So I dismember the delivery so that I extract the
Hmm.
value, and then I can integrate it into myself.
Powerful, powerful, powerful. Well, that's a great example. And for people listening, it's not always easy to do this. So I like, for everyone that is maybe going through something much more deeper, sometimes sitting in with the feeling and the emotion, right? You might not be able to kind of look at it and see what it's telling you right away, right, Eddie? I mean, let me know if I'm wrong, but sometimes it's sitting in and kind of let it pass, but never engage. And if you can learn from it right away, like Eddie says, kind of, oh, let me take a look at it from outside and see what it's telling me,
Hmm.
that'd be the best way to go. But it might not be possible, and that's okay. You're not doing anything wrong, because sometimes it can spiral for no apparent reason, and letting it kind of pass, it's, I think, that the right way to go. I mean, if unless Eddie can add
No,
anything to it, but
I think I would add to it that anytime the talker is talking to you, try and give it a name that is not
mm-hmm,
your name,
mm-hmm,
you know, because it's easy to fall into the story or in the trap of like, oh, that's me. That's
mm-hmm.
me talking bad at myself. And I'm like, no, 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 no. It's just it's a system. It's like an algorithm. It's trained on stuff. So it's not you. So if it talks to you and you call it, oh, Nancy, or hey, Karen, you're here nagging at me again, there's already a layer, that distance that you're putting to it. You know, you're like, oh, I'm not Karen, I'm Eduardo. So this thing talking to me is giving me information, but it's not me. So
So
that's a tool for me.
that's a beautiful tool, because Eddie, when you give it a name, it helps you disidentify, or like clear identification with that voice isn't me, right? That's
Exactly.
beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's why I got inspired. I call it a talker. It's not a name, but it is a name in a way that I know, wait a minute, right? That talker is in, it's
Mm-hmm.
whether I can recognize why and what not, but I can now more often than not recognize that it's talking, right? Which is
Yeah.
a very in important state, that is, oh, well, that's not me. I'm not talking to myself. I wouldn't, and no one would talk to themselves like that. If you have the conscious choice, you'd never say some of those things to yourself like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
um
Yeah.
Eddie, if you had to pick one sentence that the talker used to say a lot to you, what was it? Do you remember? Like, maybe some people is anxiousness, something that whatever triggers anxious, but some people is, it can be different things. What was yours? What favorite sentence of the talker?
I guess it can be like something like, "Oh, here you go again," or like, "Or you see,
You see, I told you so.
I told you."
Well, I mean, this is one of my favorite one. I'm happy that you said that, because the talker has this beautiful pattern to judge you after something's happened, but by including the information that he already knows. So at the time you took the decision to do something, you had a limited information. Now something's been done, and you have that extra piece of information that the talk would use to judge you for something you did before you knew.
Because it's trained in all your data, man. It's like Ego GPT, man. Talker GPT. It knows everything and it can use it against you.
Oh, I like it. So talk GPT. I did promise we're gonna talk about it now. ChatGPT. Oh, I have a lot of favorite questions in my mind here. But if ChatGPT can be trained, or maybe something like ChatGPT can be trained, and you can purchase it, hook it up on yourself, have a button in your hand that you can turn off your talker with a button, would you do it? Would you hook yourself up?
Hook myself up to like ChatGPT
It doesn't have to be ChatGPT, but let's say some company invents,
and
okay, you,
large language model.
yeah, and then you can control it with your phone. It doesn't go anywhere. It's on your phone. Like, presumably nobody, the data does not leave your device, and you have the control with one button. When the talker starts yapping about how you suck today at this game, and you can turn it off, and it disappears, and you're back to presence. Would you use this tool?
I think that may be useful, you know? I think it's like a technologically assisted return to presence.
Wouldn't be
Yeah,
that? Yes, I'd love it. That's my aspiration. Maybe one day I work further towards it. But I do, because if you look at from what Buddha and Jesus used to say, up all the way up to whether it's Eckhart Tolle that you follow now, or whoever it is nowadays, but the message is always the same. Presence. They have different tools, whether it's meditation, self
the
work,
breath.
breath, whatever it is. But the goal is always to return to presence, right? That
Mm.
that that is the goal, whatever tool you use. So what's the difference if you have even more sophisticated, quicker to get you to the presence. That is the goal. So
Yeah, why not? You
why
know,
not?
I think um, there's many paths to presence, right? You just mentioned a few. I think one of them that I have used many times in the past is remember how your toes feel.
Oh, grounded. Oh, feel like okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, okay, pay attention. How do my toes feel? Okay, you're no longer here, man. There's talker, what talker, man? Like I'm on toe mode.
Oh my Tomo, I love it. So feeling through the body, it's probably one of the oldest and I think one of the most effective ways to be present. Like
Yeah,
feeling through the body, right? That's beautiful. When people say if your consciousness can be transferred to a computer, what's the problem with that sentence?
I
Would you?
think consciousness cannot be transferred to a computer. I think the computer can only simulate the compendium of training that equates to the idea of you, but consciousness is non-local. So if you put it into data, it's going to be a file. It's going to be memory, and you are not your memories,
Beautiful. I
right?
know.
So your consciousness is streaming through this vessel, but it's non-local. It's not contained in you.
Correct.
So what you put into the computer will only be a simulation of the compendium of your experiences or of your data.
Of your
So
data.
that's not you. That's
And
not you.
no.
If they promise you that they're going to upload you to the cloud, you're dying. The moment you stop breathing and there's no electrical information going through your biological system, your consciousness is going to disengage and it's going to flow to another dimension, but it's not going to be to the cloud.
Okay, and then the reason I love that answer, that's the reason I'm asking you this, because I think what they mean by that is that they're gonna transfer your talker. Like, I mean, that part is transferable, or the memories, the thing that
Yeah,
think you
yeah.
think you are, that is transferable, and that will reach. But well, like Eddie pointed very perfectly, that consciousness is not transferable to computer because the computer is in consciousness. It's not outside. You cannot get right, like we talked about. There's
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
outside of consciousness. And I want to ask you. I heard about a teacher saying one powerful sentence, and I want to see your take on it. He said, "Ultimately, there's nothing outside of you." What does that mean to
Hmm.
you?
Nothing outside of you. Well, I think there's a distinction here for me that this word you is like a capital Y U. The capital Y U is this disidentified you-ness beyond your container. So when there's nothing beyond you, we're talking about the you that is the sky, the you that is the presence in all presence, the you that is beyond language. It's
Beautiful.
like they can label it like in a limited way as the ultimate observer or the infinite witnesser.
The I am.
But
The I. There's
yeah,
many
I
ways to
am.
the I am.
Yeah, but even languaging it
It's challenging,
is limiting
limiting it
it.
because
So so there's nothing beyond that awareness to give it a
beautiful,
rudimentary
beautiful,
expression.
beautiful. And this is a good example that Eddie is describing here, or deciphering, is that when you take something through the ego lens, none of it makes sense. None of that would make sense. This sentence, there's nothing outside of you, looked through the ego lens, does not make any sense, because the ego sees itself as a small separate thing. We talked about survival. We talked about how it sees everything against and outside, right? So that doesn't make sense. But look from the point of view that it's all one total I am, then that it makes sense. When they say we talked about consciousness, did consciousness make a mistake with the ego? Was that a mistake? In playing with itself, did it make an error? creating a
No, no,
self-destructive
I think it was a survival mechanism that was useful when consciousness was exploring the the human mammalian experience. And in order to
uh,
further develop
mhm,
itself, it needed the ego for survival. And once the human experience developed enough complexity to no longer need the ego, then that's when we started having the transcendental humans, the prophets, the enlightened. But we still carry on the vestiges of that
mhm.
evolutionary tool, which is the
Beautiful,
ego.
beautiful.
Uh, we're learning more and more every day that it is an obsolete system that we no longer require to thrive. Uh, but I mean, it's gonna take a while to integrate that lesson.
How
I
long?
mean,
If you had to put it,
we
if you had to guess a year, it's like how long before humanity says, "Well, we're done. Thank God. We like this is in the past. We can watch movies about it now."
no, yeah, well, like, man, like you're asking me how long till all of humanity becomes enlightened?
It's a big
I think
question, but I mean, it's a guess, right?
I think AI will definitely help leverage this growth and this awareness, but I don't know, man. Just to give you a ballpark range, maybe a 500 years.
Okay, and I'm not gonna hold you to it. I just a curious because you were talking about how it's an absolute tool. It definitely is absolute tool, but man, oh man, is it so integrated within our physical existence? So it will.
See, I have a bounce back question to you.
Yes.
Do you think primates will develop egos?
Ooh, what a nice question. What I've seen from some documentaries that I've seen with primates, with even with chimpanzees, that they have somewhat like, especially male chimpanzees, they exhibit signs of ego.
Hmm.
So whether that's gonna grow to the level that the human ego grew, I don't know. I don't know what the
With enough evolutionary racing and generational evolution, perhaps. I mean, I don't know.
it's.
It puts us in the question of whether primates from where we're standing can evolve within a certain amount of time to where we are today.
But you know what? I mean, I want to add something to my answer, and including what you said, because in that documentary they show that the chimpanzees that develop the strongest ego, the strongest aggressive separation and ego, they were the first ones to die in when there was a disease in the herd, or when there's some problems. They weren't feeling the collective energy and support. So I think
Mm.
maybe nature corrects that behavior faster. Like, as just one thought. So maybe there's a self-correction mechanisms in Mother Nature that will prevent them from that. Is basically what I got from studying that. But humans seem to we have created this system that the egos can survive. Like we've created these safety nets, right?
Do humans require the ego for enlightenment?
I think recognizing what enlightenment is requires an ego, because if you only had enlightenment, then you wouldn't be able to recognize it from something outside. Like, meaning you have to kind of switch to none to go recognize, well, wow, this what I had was good, and it was the
Mm,
enlightenment
mm,
state. So that would
mm,
be my
mm.
answer.
I feel you. I feel you. So then, from that perspective, and pointing the light towards the primates, do you think primates will ever be able to achieve enlightenment?
Ooh. I mean, in the
With
state,
how many? It may take thousands of years.
yes, yeah, absolutely. Because in the realm of consciousness, there isn't an impossible play. Like if we say this is impossible, that would be a lie, because
Yeah.
it is possible. Whether
Yeah.
it's likely, I think most likely not, because I mean, the beautiful expression of apes as part of this consciousness, I don't, yeah, I don't know. I would say probably not, but again, right? It's um and yeah, this is a beautiful topic, but I wanted to, because we are past the time that I usually allot the 1 hour. I have a favorite question with which I wanted to end, but
Mm.
before I do that, is there anything, because it's such a big topic, the talker, consciousness, us, is there anything that we didn't touch that you think it's, hey, this is a nugget that I want to share with everybody when it comes to the talker and the self?
No, I think we covered the wide range of the experience of the talker, and we helped ground the energy in a way that we gave the audience many resources
Mhm.
to disidentify from him
I
or
think
it.
so. I think so. And I don't think that'll be the last time Eddie and I chat. I'm gonna be looking forward part two. But before I let it go, my favorite question which I lent here is, if the talker was a separate human, if your talker was a separate human outside of you, Eddie,
Mm.
sitting inside of you right now, what would you say to him or her? It doesn't matter.
Thank you. Thank you for helping me know myself. Yeah, period. Helping me know myself.
This is beautiful, and this seems to be a repetitive answer from people, and that answers the question that you I had from you. Did we need the talk to enlighten? And that, thank you. I think it points to it, right? Because it helps
Yeah,
you realize who
yeah,
you actually are. Beautiful. Thank you, Eddie. I can't thank you enough for this beautiful conversation,
yeah.
from self to self. And I hope the listeners and viewers are enjoying it or have enjoyed it as much as we did. And I'm looking forward part two. I hope your channel continues to chat to touch
Thank you.
people in a beautiful way that it does. You're doing an amazing work, and I said we'll put all the links that you connect with Eddie. And looking forward part two. Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you, man.
Bye. Thank you for listening to my tribe. Share it or leave me a note. Remember, your talker isn't you. Presence is. Less talker, more presence. See you next time.